Hello, welcome back. We're back again with the Mandalorian. I should say Mandalorian question mark. Episode 5, Series 3, Episode 5, Chapter 21, The Pirate. Let's just say, get this out of the way. So, 44-minute runtime with about 35 minutes of actual screen time. I thought was pretty good timing-wise. But let's just jump right into it. The Pirate, what did you think?
So, if I enjoyed last week's, I really enjoyed this week's even more. It felt like it was going back to its roots, almost. And I also feel the only thing I would say was negative is if they're doing this whole kind of like, look at the reason we did this whole episode dedicated to being on Coruscant. I'm like, you really didn't need a whole episode to set this one up. That's my only bad thing. But other than that, I actually really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I agree. I thoroughly enjoyed it as a standalone episode, and I came to the conclusion though this series is basically, this season I should say, has essentially just been a whole bunch of standalone episodes, which is its major and only really real downfall at the moment. Is that it doesn't appear to be any major sort of cohesive story threads linking everything together. There's vague, things where you get into some Mandalorian stuff, and that's kind of tying the episodes together, but it's not. There's no real main thread. I mean, we're getting to a sort of main thread and villain now, when we've got 3 episodes left.
Yeah,
it seems like we've just kind of wasted a little time. But let's go back to this episode on its own. I thought pacing was good. Action was good. It did progress the story a bit. I mean, it probably progressed the story more than any other episode. There was definitely some weird moments and flaws, but yeah, I think you're right. It kind of went back to what I loved about Mandalorian's season 1 and 2.
Yeah,
right. That's that. I mean, you had more Mandalorians, so there was less. Again, there's no focus on the Mandalorian at all.
No.
Like Jin being the Mandalorian. They really should change the name of the show now to the Mandalorians with an S. But it was solid. There was some weird character thing. Some characters did some stuff that I thought was a bit bizarre, but we'll get into that when we go down to episode.
I think I know what
breakdown.
you're talking about. I think I already know what you're talking about. I hope I'm right when we get to that. I hope I'm right.
There was a surprise cameo in this, and I have this weird thing where I can't unsee people from specific roles. Now, you're a fan of Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yep.
Did you recognise the, what do you call him, middle management officer on Coruscant? He was the Hannibal from that was in prison in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He was the guy who, the cannibal.
When I saw him, I was like, he is familiar. You're absolutely right. I was like, he is really familiar. I'm like, where am I recognizing them from? Oh man!
I was expecting him to sort of snap at him and like. I have a real hard time, especially if it's a show that I've really enjoyed in the past. I have a real hard time separating, actors from like their sort of iconic, or not even iconic, but the roles I know them from. So that totally took me out of the moment. But that's no fault of the show or the actor. That was just me. So I did think I was kind of chuckling at that a little bit. But yeah, I enjoyed the episode pretty well, pretty good.
I think the main thing for me was that the main kind of the main plot for the Mandalorians anyway was going back and helping. What's his name again? High Commissioner.
Oh yeah,
I always
Carl Withers.
Yeah, the thing is, I actually watch it with subtitles on. Just because our TV always has subtitles on for some weird reason, and I'm always like, oh yeah, that's the name, and then like completely forget. But going back to what I was going to say was that I thought the kind of fighting / action was really good this week. Like I liked there was the kind of plan to send one ship in to take out the pirate ship and then act as a diversion, and then going and dropping Mandalorians on and making them look pretty badass, and doing all that kind of planning and tactical maneuvers and all that kind of stuff. I thought the action was great. There was a bit of an ambush of like, oh no, what's going to happen? The pirates had a bit of an upper hand, and then the armourer was totally badass. And I got to the end of all of that. I thought it was good, generally overall. Thought it was amazing. Thought it was really good. Nothing too wacky or anything like that. You're going to probably tell me something I didn't notice. But the only thing that I thought was just a bit kind of like, is once again, as you've mentioned on previous episodes, it does make Din look rubbish now.
Yeah.
They all look badass now. And he's just like fallen down the ranks of looking cool.
Well, that was kind of the one of the problems I had with the episode. And so the two major gripes of the episode, as a sort of in general. The first is that you've spent this whole season kind of making the Mandalorians look like chumps and useless, totally ineffective. They spent every episode they've been in, they've either been getting their asses kicked by, the dinosaur turtle, or the flying bird, or they're flying off with jetpacks when they've got no fuel. So you've made them out to feel to look stupid. Whereas in season 1, 2 or 3 of the Mandalorians together, and they reference it in here, like 2 or 3 of them fought off all these crazy bounty hunters and were kicking their ass. And this time you've got a squad, much fewer Mandalorians I notice in this episode than last week's.
Oh yeah.
I don't know where they've, I mean, obviously they didn't bring the foundlings or anything, but to show them now as total badasses, you completely, like military tactics, military discipline, after spending so much time having shown them being useless and ineffective, it took me, I just thought to myself, I don't buy it anymore. Like, I was like, I don't buy it now. You can't make, and yeah. Jin still, he was doing great stuff, but I was like, I don't buy it anymore. You've made me believe that they're useless.
But I mean, the main thing that I did, like, I think what actually, you see, speaking to you always makes me kind of like rethink these things. But I think if I go back and think about it, I think the action was on point. I think
oh yeah,
the actual plot of the story, if you took that separately away from the actual backstory, the Mandalorian section seemed to be really good, well thought out. It wasn't too crazy. Like, there was no plot holes as well. That's what I liked. There was nothing too weird happening, and it made it quite an enjoyable action sequence. But yeah, at the end, when the dust has settled, so to speak, I'm just sitting there going, oh great, so they're all badasses now? Okay, so when they need to be, they can basically avenge a whole planet. It's a bit like, oh, what's going on?
Yeah, it's like I don't like it when things are done just because the story demands it.
Yeah.
Like, if you pick a lane and you make the Mandalorians either really good, and they're always got to be good, or you make them bad, and then they've always got to be bad, and you can write the story around that.
Yeah.
The other thing I actually didn't like, and it's a Game of Thrones Season 8 problem, which they've thrown in, is just all those people starve to death because I don't know how long it takes to travel the galaxy, but he has to send it's a sort of time frame. They get invaded. He sends a message via a droid to a random bar where Blue is, the Blue leader, the X-Wing pilot. He then flies to Coruscant, which, I mean, in an X-Wing, it's at least 2 or 3 days has passed by this point, for sure.
Yeah. He
gets rejected in Coruscant. He then has to fly to the Mandalorian Coven. That's going to have to be, I don't know how long, that's another 2 days. So by now, a week's almost gone past. Then he talks to the Mandalorians. They have a debate. You see clearly at least 2 days has passed at that point. And then they have to fly to Navarro. So, I mean, I don't know what they're expecting the time frame to be here.
And had this massive fight. The one thing my wife did mention at the end of it was like, oh great, so they spent all that time and all those resources to save 15 people or 20 people that live
I also there. I was thinking, this is the whole planet. How small is this planet Navarro, where there's literally one town?
Yeah,
that's like a small asteroid.
The other bit that I thought was quite funny was like, you know, at the end he's like, oh, you know, thanks Mandalorians, you did good. We're going to give you the lands from all the way from a lava field. I thought, well, there's not much prime building opportunity there, to this canyon. And I thought to myself, is that good? Like, is this prime real estate?
How big
or
is
has he
this
just
land?
been given some wasteland? How big is that?
Yeah.
Look at all
Right,
the
let's
things, you know?
I don't know. Let's go to the episode breakdown a little bit. So I did think, so when we start off, we're basically starting off back on Navarro, which I kind of liked. You know, I like. It's a nice planet. It looks quite nice, and I like Carl Withers. So you're seeing all how they're getting on, and you know he's doing his sort of engineering stuff. He's like, why don't you move? I don't know how their town works, where they can just pick up entire districts and move them closer to the railway station.
His HS2 project wasn't in his plan. He was pretty annoyed with
the Elon Musk monorail didn't make it there. Monorail.
I was going to say North Haverbrook got one.
North Haverbrook. Put them on the map. So Navarro's going on the map. But yeah, then they get invaded by the pirate from episode 1 or 2. Comes back, and I quite like that character. You know, he's got the voice. I'm gonna have to look up the voice actor because the voice is very familiar to me, but I can't figure out who it is. Yeah, but he comes in. They're attacking they're just yeah. I didn't understand. I mean, this is the future, right? I mean, it's not the future if you think of the original title as a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, but it's the future, right? They've got future technology. How did no one notice that this massive cruiser was coming 15 inches off the town? Like,
so I was trying to think about this because they're obviously not defended by the New Republic because
they make that clear.
Independent, and they made that very clear. But yeah, like they didn't have protection from the Empire anymore. But I was kind of thinking, did nobody think? Maybe we need some defences. I mean, I know he tried to hire him as a lawman, the Mandalorian as a lawman and stuff like that. But I did think, you know, you talked about these mental opportunities for building and improving trade and stuff like that nobody thought, oh, you know what we need? We need like a radar to point up just to make sure that nobody's coming close.
Or someone is out there with a bunch of binoculars just looking, you know. They seem to get snuck up on. I don't know what resources are on this planet, Navarro. Like, everybody seems to want it. It seems like a bit of a wasteland. I don't understand why it's so popular.
I think it's because they've turned it into an outer rim trading hub.
Oh, right.
I think that's kind of the whole point of it. It was kind of like the Empire's base where, was it Moss? What's his name?
Moff Gideon.
Gideon, that's it. I keep meaning, even though I've not really seen Breaking Bad, I keep meaning to call him by his Breaking Bad character name, but I know
Moth Gus Fring.
Yeah, I always want to call him Gus, and I'm like, no, it's not Gus. But yeah, they had the protection. So before then, I think because it was an outpost for them, they had some kind of strategic or logical, geographical benefit.
They had like a base on there or something. I can't remember exactly what the base was doing. Obviously something evil, but mining for something maybe.
I think it was mining or something. But yeah, they shoehorned in that. Oh yeah, it'll be a good trading hub, and I don't think they really went into that too much. But yeah, like all of a sudden you're just like massive shit. And what I didn't get right is, and I never get this even in the real world with military and stuff like that. They just started randomly shooting into the town, and I'm like, you don't need to do that. They obviously didn't see you coming. All you need to do is land your ship, and all the guns just walk into the town and go, no, this is ours now. And you didn't have to destroy anything. I didn't get that. It was like they were such an overwhelming force. I think it could have been cooler if they just turned up and took the whole town hostage and made it more like a Wild West siege.
Yeah, I didn't understand what their motivation was. Like, did they want? If they wanted to destroy the town, they could have easily done that because they clearly had that huge cruiser. They could have just blown it to bits.
Yeah.
Or did they want to take over this, incredibly popular town? In which case, you wouldn't wanting to destroy it. But maybe there's just, the pirates are just kind of assholes, really. And like they're shooting into the town sort of randomly to make sure people are afraid and won't try and, fight back. But
when well, I'll let you do your episode because there's a bit at the end of that kind of sequence. But if you go through your rest of your episode,
yeah, well, they have their back and forth, and eventually he gets the message out, a la A New Hope, He puts the little message in the droid. I was expecting him to say, "You're my only hope," or something along those lines. But
what was
he gets his message out.
What was the line this week, though? There was a line that was a obvious reference was obvious. Oh, I can't remember what it was. It wasn't "It's a Trap" or something like that. There was a Star Wars line. I'll have to check that out later. But there was a Star Wars line. I was like, oh, jeez, really. But anyway, sorry.
They do like to remind you of, better times. Yeah, this is Star Wars. Remember it. So yeah, they did the thing. I don't really understand why. Now again, it's been a while since I watched season 1 and 2, but I can't really remember the X-wing pilot Blue. I think they called him Blue. And the High Chancellor, whatever his name is. Like I don't recall them having a massive relationship, so I don't understand why he sent a message directly to him.
Yeah.
It could be something I've missed there, but
thing. Did you watch the recap at the start?
I no. I should have.
I watched the recap. Well, no, there was no point. Because I don't want to ruin too much because you've still got to get through the episode recap. But the things in the recap didn't really. There was only one thing that was very obvious that they made a reference to, and then it was a couple of things from last week's episode, and I was kind of like, that was it. There was nothing, and yeah, when I saw Blue, I was like, hang on a minute, were they a main character? Am I supposed to remember them? Hang on a minute. Is there some kind of past relationship I've got with this character? I can't remember. I think I remember them, but am I remembering them from something? And I was sitting there for like a good couple of moments going, who is that? Do I know? I think I know them. I couldn't remember.
Yeah, this is why I stopped watching the recaps, because that's why I stopped watching the recaps. They're generally pointless. Like, I don't know who's putting these recaps together, but they're just picking random scenes, it seems like.
Well, I'm not going to watch it next week because they're spoilers. Or the obvious recap, or once again, kind of obvious recap is obvious. When you watch the recap, you go, I know what's going to happen in this episode. And for me, they make it happen.
Yeah. So, yeah, he gets the message out, and it goes to Blue, pilot. He's like, I'm going to send this off to Coruscant, and we get, haha, isn't the New Republic so funny with all its bureaucracy? Because you send a message, it's going to take weeks. I'm like, well, okay, but what if I go there in person? Surely that'll take as long, but okay. So we get that pointless scene, and he arrives in Coruscant, and this is when I started to get afraid, because I was thinking to myself, oh no, is this going to be another episode where the Mandalorian basically doesn't show up at all?
Good. I wasn't the only one that was thinking that, because I was thinking, hang on a minute, what is going on here?
Especially when we saw the women. Now, this episode could have been a perfect introduction to the women again. Like, her episode with the Doctor, like 2 weeks ago, this doesn't need to be there. You could easily have just recapped her the same way you did in that episode. And then you remember, oh yeah, she was with Moff Gideon's right hand with communications woman, and she acts shady as fuck in this as well. So
100% agree.
Yeah, you just didn't need that unless they're going to pay that off later on.
I was going to say, my first thought when I saw her, and like you see her in like the background or the foreground, or something's happening on in the background. My first thought was, right, okay, so please tell me we didn't have a whole episode with that scientist who maybe basically proved, because now that episode to me has now become they did actually convert to the New Republic, and we don't want them. We want the people that are still like in their old programming, because of course that's what I think is being set up for. Because you'll go into what happens later on in the episode, but like when I saw her, I was like, aha, right. So we had that whole episode, which was basically, as far as I can tell so far, her basically recruiting people that haven't been converted properly. And obviously that scientist, I think, failed because he wanted to help the New Republic over the Empire. I think that's what that sub-story was, that subplot was. But it was a very clunky, clumsy way. If that's what that episode was doing, I feel that it was far too clunky for what needed to happen.
Yeah, so as a way to introduce the character, the woman again, total overkill. Total overkill. I got more from her interactions with Blue and the requisitions manager than I did in that other entire episode. So, yeah.
Yeah, because if you didn't have that episode, if they didn't have that episode, you could have maybe bolted on a bit of dialogue that basically explained, like, he could have been like, oh, if you met this person, they're part of the New Republic, conversion therapy, or whatever you want to call it, retraining them, breaking their programming. Here's so-and-so, and they could have been like, oh, I'll never trust an empire, blah, 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 blah. So you wouldn't have had to have a huge backstory, like a person at a speech explaining what's happened to them. You would have pretty much caught up. And if you wanted to kind of like, I don't know, there could be in a different way to introduce the whole, we're looking for empire people that haven't been broken by the New Republic. And I think there could have been such a slicker way. If that is the plot, I mean, it might not be, but if that is the plot, then that episode was a complete waste of time, in my opinion.
Yeah, because I mean, she basically outs herself almost to Blue. The guy, they clearly paint Blue as, sensible and, righteous, and
almost ex-rebel,
He was a rebel, and the requisitions manager is basically just a pencil pusher middleman, and she outs herself as kind of still imperial, which is like, well, maybe you should let them burn, essentially, let Navarro burn, and that'll teach them to not join the New Republic. And he's like, well, that's very imperial of you. And he's like, well, and that, again, that little interaction is enough to say, like, show her motivation and show his motivation. Yeah, and it sort of showed those characters like perfectly for me. So I thought that was just enough. The whole previous thing, if it doesn't, I just have this fear nothing else in that episode's going to pay off now. It was entirely just to introduce the woman to this plot. Basically, Blue goes to request aid from the New Republic, is told, take a hike, because they're not part of the New Republic, and we have all these other planets to look after who are part of the New Republic. And it's like, okay, that actually kind of makes sense. Because if you were part of the New Republic, and these guys, Navarro, have actively not joined, it's not like they've tried to join and were rejected, they've actively not joined because they want to be independent, and now they suddenly come crying for help. You think, well, actually, no.
I also think that raised a key point, which I think was easily overlooked, was when he also mentioned, like, we can't keep up with the people that are members. And I thought, oh, that's interesting, because that's obviously that, if the Empire is coming back, or there is a resurgence in that was a precursor to, we can't defend everything. The New Republic has taken on too much. Or the New Republic isn't expecting a threat anymore.
And I do like, I say I like, but I don't like as well. You've got one character who's basically the X-Wing guy who's like, the Empire is regrouping, because he's talking about all these things that nobody else is seeing and nobody else seems to care about. So he's like, but I know, the Empire is regrouping. And we know, as the audience, that is in fact true. Because the First Order are going to appear soon. Well, he was talking about, like, there's been reports of stormtroopers on Navarro and TIE fighters flying overhead.
Oh, so he did, yeah, right, okay, yeah. No, I now remember that scene. Yeah, for a split second, I was like, how did he think that?
Then he drops the bomb, which, as soon as he said it, I knew what was coming later on. He's like, and Moff Gideon never made it to trial. You're like, right. So that, I think we called it a couple of episodes ago, where the Mando and Bo-Katan got chased by those TIE fighters. And you're like,
Yeah.
right. So Moff Gideon's out, and that's an end of the episode bit. But so we'll come back to that. And he then flies, and this is where I didn't like at all. I started to think, ugh, this is Deus Ex Machina all over the place. He flies to the Mando planet, and I was thinking to myself, how the fuck does he know where they are? And then he lands on the planet, and there's not a soul to be found. The last episode, there was out on the beach training. There was hundreds of them, and now there's not a soul to be
and
found.
they're just lobbing stuff into the water.
And again, they do kind of see him, and they're like, are they luring him into a trap? Because you see them on the ridge, and they're like, okay, so they haven't been caught completely with their pants down. I thought he was going to just walk in, and they're going to turn around and be like,
they're all standing around the furnace
with their helmets on. Right. But then, so he comes out and he's like, how did you find us? And he's like, so this is one of the things I don't get because I didn't watch like Rebels or Clone Wars. And obviously he was in Clone Wars, and he was talking about, I had someone I served with in the Clone Wars here. I thought you meant Bo-Katan. But then it turns out it was the droid R5 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Like, so, but how did he know that R5 was with Mandalorian? I know he saw the N1 when he was flying around Tatooine.
Yeah.
He saw the N1. Did he recognize that it was R5 at that point? And then he said, well, aha, you must still be with the Mandalorian. He can't possibly know that he's still with the Mandalorian. Yeah. So he's somehow managed to communicate with this R5 without anyone knowing. And then the R5's managed to communicate back their location. So surely at that point, then the Mandalorian's like, well, you're going in the scrap heap.
I was going to say, you're getting yeeted, mate, because you can't keep your mouth shut.
Exactly.
Next time you're in deep space, we're just going to eject.
Yeah, eject. R5, can you check something out in the back, please? Fly off.
Just floating bastard. In space forever.
Yeah. So I thought, okay, fair enough. And then the Mandos all come out, and I still enjoy seeing the Mandalorians. So it's still fun to see them on screen.
I think that's why I was so excited, especially with the when they were getting ambushed and they were getting boxed in and all that kind of stuff. Because I thought, this is great. This is what they're all about. We're seeing them do what they do best now, because apparently they're not rubbish anymore. Were they ever rubbish? Well, but in that whole part of the episode, I forgot about that. I was like, this is cool. They're doing Mandalorian things and being pretty cool about it.
Yeah, so he convinces Mando to go and help his buddy. I thought, okay, cool, buy that. But then I thought he would go and join them. I thought he would go and help too.
Yeah.
Because it didn't seem like he was ordered not to help.
It was just like, no, you're not going to get reinforcements.
Yeah, we're not going to come help you, but it didn't seem like he was ordered not to help. So I thought, why isn't he gone? So I thought that was weird. But then, your Mandalorians have their wee powwow, and apparently you can talk when you're holding the hammer. That's their thing. And half of them have gone away on vacation or something, because there's only about half the number that it was there before.
Oh, that big X-wing landed. I'm actually. Look at the time. I've got to go see.
Yeah,
because they're all having that big chat about having a battle.
We only have 2 ships. I'm needed somewhere else. Bye.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the 2 ships, because I thought when I was like, where is everybody? And then I was like, I did think about 2 minutes later when it's like, how are they going to get there? I was like, that's why there's not many of them, because they're only going to be able to fit so many in Bo-Katan's ship. So it's like they're going to have to set it early on in the episode, the scale.
Yeah.
Of how
we know the scale. Have. We know the ship can hold like 3 massive dinosaur birds. So I'm surely a few extra Mandalorians aren't going to take up too much room. But I do always like the big guy Mandalorian with the chain gun.
Yeah.
Like, I always think he's got... He came on with the total bait and switch. Of like,
oh, yeah.
I hate you. I hate you. But we are Mandalorians. This is what we do. This is the way. And it's like, this is the way. Like, okay. So, we're cool now. Yeah, we're cool. We'll go help. It's like, right.
Yeah.
So, it was a cool little scene, but again, when I look back at it, I think it just seems a bit pointless. Don't bother baiting. Just have Mando do his speech, and then you just have the guy like kind of pick up his gun and then walk out the cave. That be his thing, where you don't know what he's going to do, and he walks out to the cave, like, get in the ship, let's go. You're like, right. Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been cool. Yeah, actually. Yeah, I like that.
Let's just do that. Then they spend all night coming up with another plan. That's what Mandalorians like to do. Waste time coming up with a plan. I like it even when he's doing his speech, actually, he says, everyone gave up on my son, including me.
And then, sad Mandalorian noise.
Bo-Katan was the only one who, like, helped my son. I'm like, yeah. Oops. Not a great day to be a foundling. It's like, don't tell his mother. Yeah. So then,
no, maybe that's where they've all gone.
Yeah, that's it. They've all.
As the mother's moved out to a different house, you're not looking after our son anymore.
I'll take all the foundlings. You can get them in a divorce. But yeah. So then they fly off to Navarro, and you have the best action scene of the series for sure.
Definitely.
Cool shit. I love ship-to-ship dogfighting combat when it's done well, and this was done well with that. You had Mando going in on the N1, distracting the ship because they hate Mando, which is kind of why they came back in the first place, the pirates, because they hate Mando because he killed a bunch of their guys. So seeing him again was like, yep, that makes sense. It would kind of didn't make chase. I would have liked it more had the X-Wing been there, and it's less like 10 against 1. You know, like 10 against 1, I was like, come on, I know them, but you're now turning Mandalorian back up to where he was season 1 and 2, where you've had him before this episode being kind of pointless, and you've just flipped the switch again back to like full awesome. But even just having the X-Wing there would have made that much more realistic, having 2 against 1. Because I know the pirates are obviously kind of crap. They're drunk half the time. They've not got the best equipment, but still, like, come on.
Yeah.
So then, it's good. He lures them away. Mandalorians jump down, and then again they switch on to like full, like Navy SEAL tactics. They're slick. They're jump shipping. Or they're like SAS. They're paratripping in. They're taking out boys left, right, and center. I like those wee monkey things. I don't know what they are, but they're like the ones. Yeah, the Jabba's palace was like.
Yeah.
like, okay, cool. Like, they're getting help from the wee things, but then you see them, and I thought to myself, we've seen this Beskar armor from the Mandalorian basically be impenetrable. So I don't feel like they're in any danger really. Until it's needed,
there's a bit of a kind of God mode enabled aspect to it, isn't there?
Yeah, because they're just going along, and these other guys are in rags, and they're all drunk, and they're taking them out, left, right, and center, and then it finally gets to a point where, oh wait, they've actually brought in a weapon that can hurt us, so we better hide behind these rocks to give the armorer a cool moment. Now that was a cool moment. That was a cool bit when the guys put that cannon on, and even the cannon direct hit doesn't kill the Mandalorian guy. So then the armor comes in, starts knocking their heads off with the hammer and like her little tongs, and she's kicking her ass.
Yeah.
But then the next scene is one of the Mandalorians with a rocket launcher. Like, couldn't he have just fired that one up? Like,
yeah.
Don't force drama where there doesn't need to be. Like, because it was actually quite dramatic anyway.
Yeah.
So that was my only gripe with that scene. Other than that, it was pretty sweet. That's what you wanted. That's what you've been waiting for all this time when more Mandalorians came into it. Like Mandalorians doing more Mandalorian things, dropping in, taking out hordes of enemies without like slick and like, as a team, as a unit, because that's the whole thing as well, right? That they're like kind of like Spartans. Yeah, they're kind of like Spartans. I mean, like you work with your brother, and you have this creed, and it's every man for every man, you know. And that was cool seeing them do that. So hopefully they stay like that, and they don't instantly turn back into blubbering mush. Yeah, it was good, and then basically that's the end of the pirates. They came back together and destroyed the pirate ship, and it crashed. I did to myself, is that ship going to crash into the town and wipe out this town, the whole planet town?
Yeah, well, that was my thought. I was like, oh god, is it going to completely destroy them?
But
They're going to inherit a wasteland. Well, the thing was that it brings me back to, like, you know, when you said, oh, did they not see the giant pirate ship? I like the way that out of the people in Navarre, they had one gun. The High Commissioner had the one gun and joined in at the very end. It was like, pew! And I was like, mate, that's pretty mental, because there was still about 6 of them with guns.
Yeah, they were being chased out of town, but like they could have easily just said, well, fuck it, let's just kill everyone.
Yeah.
So you're right, yeah, he brought all his farmers and women and children back with him. It wasn't even just like
with his one gun.
With his one gun. It's like, you guys get behind me. It's like an enemy at the gate at Stalingrad, where it's like, when the man in front falls, pick up his rifle.
Yeah. But then the next bit that happens, and I don't know what you think about it, but it really annoyed me.
What, when he's giving his speech to the town and gives over...
No, he's done the speech.
Land.
They're like, oh, here you go, you can have, I don't know, I presume it's good land? Yeah. They didn't seem annoyed at his speech. But it's like...
Mando said it was like good land, but... Oh, yeah, there.
Bo-Katan then speaks to the armourer.
And
I was like... So, like... After that, I think it's just after the speech, or like kind of near the end of the speech, where, you know, the audience doesn't need to listen. Was it Big Machine Gun Guy? I can't remember if it was that Mandalorian or one of the other ones. Goes up to him and basically.
No, it was Big Machine Boy.
Yeah. Oh, the armourer wants to speak to you, and of course this is kind of like going back to their forge where they lived in the sewers and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So he goes down. And then this really confused me. The whole thing confused me. She gets down to the bottom. Basically, the other guy goes away, and they're like, "Right, so gotta go take your helmet off." And I'm like, "What?" I mean, what were your thoughts on that? That really confused me. That whole thing. I was like, I don't get it.
I was under the impression when she was doing that she was kicking her out of the coven.
Yeah.
She was like, right, you're out. We don't want you here.
I was like,
so
what did she do wrong? Off.
Yeah, I was thinking, what has she done here? Is it because she doesn't fit in with them, or she's, you know, betrayed them in the past? But she's like, no, you take your helmet off. And I'm like, is that her way of kicking her out? Like she's forcing her to quit? And even she's like, I don't understand. And it doesn't really make the whole premise of it doesn't really make any sense. That she's like, well, you've walked both worlds, so you can go and recruit all the other Mandalorians who, some are the old ways, some are the new ways, and you can walk the bridge between them. But Mando's done that as well, like Jin.
Yeah.
So why couldn't he have done it?
Well, the thing that got me as well was basically like, take off your helmet, and she's like, "Low what?" And then the armor is like, "I'm telling you to do it because I'm like the boss."
Yeah, I'm your boss.
And she's like, "Okay then." Takes off helmet, and I was like, "Well, hang on a minute. I don't understand. Can the armor tell them to take their helmets off?" Like, it was so weird.
Yeah, like what if she'd said that to one of the other Mandalorians, or to Jin, like, take your helmet off. It's okay, I've said. Like, that's not how it works.
Yeah, how is it okay all of a sudden that you've turned around and been like, "Oh, it's alright, I've said that you can do it," when it's like, well, hang on, wait a minute, she had to dive in some waters on Mandalore and do all these mad, crazy quests to be able to keep her helmet on and be respected, and then like, but wait, 2 episodes later, you're taking the helmet off again. Like, oh yeah, like, and the other bit that came up was like, oh yeah, you've walked you've walked both worlds, and I was like, so it's done. Like,
yeah. I would have thought
Why can't they do it?
Why can't Jin do it? Yeah, because the whole point of it is, I mean, it annoyed me because it could have easily been Jin, and it is his show. Like,
Yeah.
it is called The Mandalorian. He is meant to be the star. So he was the person I'm connected to the most in this whole series. So he's the one I want him to be like the hero. Yeah.
Yeah.
And to have all the heroic or quest building stuff taken off him and shifted onto other characters, I'm not as engaged. I'm not as involved in her story, and it just irritated me. Like, let Mando do something.
Well, it's funny you mention that, because what I thought afterwards as well, based on you said getting all the other characters. One thing I noticed at the end of the episode is like Grogu. You only see Grogu like 3 times in the episode. Yeah. One in the starship, in the N1, and then on the beach, and then like in the town hall meeting. Other than that, I don't like. You probably had about 30 seconds to maybe a couple of minutes at most of screen time, and I'm like, there'll be people there watching it, going, "I want more Mandalorian," and I'm using the term Mandalorian as in like what they perceive the Mandalorian is, Jin. Or I want to see Baby Yoda, and there's this season. If you're into it, I think you'll watch this season. I could see after the Coruscant episode, if you're not really majorly into this, you'll be like, "Where's Mandalorian? Where's Baby Yoda? I'm not really interested in this anymore."
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I was okay with the lack of Grogu in this episode because of the context. I thought it was better than having him randomly show up and save everyone with the Force, which he sometimes does. He kind of just appears and like uses the Force for some generic, unspecified way, and it just saves everyone, or he kills something massive. It's okay.
Yeah.
Let Grogu have a backseat, actually, and focus on the Mandalorian. If they'd done that, and they'd focused on the Mandalorian, I would have been much happier. But they didn't focus on either of them. They were both sideways.
No. Yeah.
So we come to the end, basically, of the episode, and it's like it's almost like a post-credit stinger, whereby Blue appears again, flying out in the middle of nowhere.
In fact, it was so unexpected. Rachel was really confused for a minute, because she was like, "Oh, I expected the dun dun."
Yeah.
I was like, no. She was like, "Oh, I thought it was the end."
Yeah, so when we get the payoff of the throwaway line from Blue to say that Moff Gideon never made it to trial. He finds this derelict ship, but it seemed like a very small transport for such a high-profile prisoner, like basically a shuttle. For such a high-profile prisoner, they may have had escort ships. We don't know. Maybe they got destroyed somewhere else. But one tiny little ship with 2 or 3 tiny like prison guards for Moff Gideon, and obviously there's a giant hole in it. We find that Moff Gideon has, presumably, they haven't spelled it out, but we can say with a reasonable level of certainty that Moff Gideon has been extradited safely.
Yep.
And then, what do we find at the end? What is the sort of thing, the stinger at the end?
Oh, the armour, the Mandalorian armour embedded in the wall of the ship.
Yeah, 2 things I thought about that. First of all, how did this indestructible Beskar armor get chinked?
Destructed.
Enough to destructed enough without leaving a Mandalorian behind? Maybe the Mandalorian died and they took his body back. But why didn't they take they're very precious about this Beskar. So yeah, it's a Mandalorian that's done it.
That didn't surprise me, and I'll explain why once you've done.
Well, that's kind of it. I was thinking to myself, who is this? Who are these team of Mandalorians now? I suspect it's Bo-Katan's old Night Owls, I think they're called.
Because they went away in the episode when she's sitting in her castle by herself. But the reason why I wasn't surprised by not only Moff Gideon escaping or whatever's happened, but I was also not surprised it was Mandalorians, because on Disney Plus, the recap it seems to be split into two bits for the Mandalorian. It seems to be the second bit of the recap, which is a longer bit, is the previous episode from like last week. But the previous bit before that was the whole Moff Gideon, on the floor, away to be shot by a Mandalorian. And it was like, I'm going to give him justice, and he's going to go to court. And then the other Mandalorian turns around to him and says, you should have killed him because that would have been justice. So as soon as I heard that, and then I knew there was a prison ship that had been got, and I thought, and I said to my wife, I was like, it'll be a Mandalorian. It'll be one of the other factions that Bo-Katan's going to have to go in and sort out, or regroup, or get them to walk the way. They'll walk the same way. And then when it was like, there's armor from Mandalorian, I was like, called it. And she just looked at me and she was like, wow. And I said, that recap was too specific as a recap. All you had to do was maybe say, he was he was like, no, I'm not going to kill Moff Gideon, and then that was it. But it was the fact that they showed the next bit where it's like, death would have been justice and all that kind of thing. I was like, no, you've made it a bit too obvious, because that was just playing through the back of my head the whole time. Obvious recaps are obvious. I think with the Mandalorian now, I've learned the hard way, so I'm gonna have to ignore them.
So, final thoughts and theories. I think the episode was good. I'm still a bit peeved at the whole structure of the series so far, because there's only 3 episodes left, and we've really not decided on.
That answers my question.
Level.
That answers my question. How many were left?
Yeah, it's like I think it's 8 episodes in total. This was episode 5, so we've got 6, 7, and 8 left. They're probably only going to be 40 minutes long each. We still have no real main threat or villain. We might have one now, but we still don't really know. So we do. And the real question I have now is: was Moff Gideon captured by another? Was he captured by someone else, or was he set free? Now, was he captured by a Mandalorian, like other faction or clan, or was he? It was clearly Mandalorians, but was he captured by the Mandalorians for themselves, or were they hired by the Resurgent Empire / First Order to free him? So that would be that'll be an interesting plot, which we presumably go over next week. But what are your thoughts on the
my final thoughts are more action like this would be good. There can be plot advancement with action. I think this episode, the whole the season has been disjointed, and I think they need to find their flow pretty quickly. My theories are more obviously, Moff Gideon's still out there. I think there's going to be a huge bit where it's going to be a bit more complicated to get the Mandalorians all back together again. Which the only thing I can see is Bo-Katan has obviously been made out to be like the more important Mandalorian now. I wouldn't even be surprised if this season / next season, if there is going to be another one, that Jin and Grogu become lesser characters and more Mandalorians take over their roles. I think this is what's experimenting, and a far out weird final thought theory would be that Bo-Katan's going to get her kind of own episode / season. Yeah,
I could see that happening. There's one thing which I forgot to mention, which had just come back into my head, and it did actually annoy me slightly. It was the armorer. So the armorer says basically, we're going to take back Mandalore. Now, there's 2 problems with that. First of all, they've just been given this presumably awesome planet of their own, so why don't they use that? And then secondly, take back Mandalore from what? Jin's already told you there's nobody there, and it's habitable.
Big monster.
Oh yeah, okay, you could take from the Mythosaur.
Yeah.
But it's like, there's nobody there. You don't have to take it. Go back. Just go back to Mandalore. It's
clear it up
habitable. A bit. Yeah, you tidy it up a wee bit. Get rid of the weird spider droid thing and that wanted to kill or suck all the juice out of Mando before. But yeah. But yeah, I think we've gone on for just about as long as the episode, so I think It's in a good place. Unfortunately, I think it's too little, too late for the
Yeah.
series. But the next 3 episodes might prove me wrong. So let's just wait and see.
Fingers crossed.
But until next week, then I will see you later.
Catch you later.